They managed to make everyone happy. The dumb woke idiots actually thought that this movie was about feminism while putting in this nice little underlying story about the patriarchy. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. And as you know, we've done movie reviews in the past, so you knew we weren't going to miss this one. Yeah, that's right. We went to go see Barbenheimer. And by Barbenheimer, I mean the Barbie movie and then the Oppenheimer movie. And I think I first, Ronan, want to talk about the Barbie movie. And to join me to talk about the Barbie movie is my fellow movie reviewer, Charlie Hornbacher. Welcome back to Red Top Report.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we saw both movies. We did the double feature, and it was long. So we're talking about probably about 5.5 hours at the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, 5.5 about.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
2 hours plus 3 hours, and then an hour in between, actually 6 hours.
So my immediate thoughts about the Barbie movie, is surface level. This is because that's how kids watch movies.
Yeah.
This is not a movie for kids. This
Absolutely
is 100% a movie for adults, guys. But beyond that, there is an underlying aspect to it that made this movie just great. And in fact, I would go so far as to say it's better than Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I would agree. I enjoyed Barbie more than Oppenheimer. I didn't think that going in. I did not think that at all. Not at all. So, yeah, Barbie was incredible. I am literally Ken. I'm just Ken. And, I happen to have a conspiracy theory about Barbie that I think just might be true.
Put on your tinfoil hat.
Oh, yeah.
Let's put them on.
So, I think... And by the way,
spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
I think that Barbie represents men in the real world. I think that Barbie Land being run by feminism, by women running everything and doing everything, represents the real world patriarchy. I think that Ken represents women in the real world, and him discovering patriarchy and bringing it into Barbie Land is women discovering feminism and bringing it to the real world, bringing it into our culture.
I had the same feeling.
Yeah. And then right now, in the real world, I kind of think we're in the middle of the third act of the Barbie movie, if you take that conspiracy theory to heart here. I think that right now, we are plucking various people out of being brainwashed, because the Barbies were brainwashed to think that they should go along with patriarchy. I think in the real world, people are being plucked out of this being brainwashed about feminism, that it's a good thing. And maybe, hopefully, the ending of Barbie, which is everything goes back to normal and the women rule the Barbie land and everything's perfect and the men are back to their, little corner in the world, doing their own little thing.
With a little bit of change, obviously.
With a little bit of change, there's a little more respect for them. I hope that interpretation of Barbie in the real world, I hope we finish out this third act of the movie. I really do.
I do too, but I want to kind of just take that a step further, because it seems to me, first off, that's correct. I mean, this movie was, guys, I think this is the first movie that Mattel has taken part in, which is the toy company that actually brought us Barbie. And it seemed like the writers were very fed up with woke stories, so they had to put something in there while not making the woke people angry, something that they thought that the average dumb, stupid viewer would like.
Let's be honest, woke people don't think below the surface. Everything is surface level for them.
Surface level, this movie's straight up feminist propaganda.
Your child and your woke friend will take that movie literally.
Yes, it's very, and that's why I said don't bring your kids to this, but enjoy it as an adult, because the writers did something brilliant. And this is why I'm actually so impressed with the movie. They managed to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
That's what they did. They managed to make everyone happy. The dumb woke idiots actually thought that this movie was about feminism while putting in this nice little underlying story about the patriarchy. I mean, Ken even discovers when he comes to the real world from Barbie Land. So there's two different settings. There's Barbie Land, which is its own world, and then there is the real world.
Yeah.
So Ken discovers patriarchy by getting a book from this outside source that's very foreign to Barbie Land.
Yeah.
And then that comes up and just permeates into Barbie Land and turns into this giant mess where there's people unfit to lead in charge of everything.
Yeah.
And there's always these, there was these dumb Barbies that kind of just went along with it and were hypnotized by it and were serving, the men, through patriarchy and stuff like that. I was like, this is 100% about feminism. What got women into feminism? It was these writings that they would put out, these propaganda writings that would come out. That's what Susan B. Anthony would do. That's what Elizabeth Cady Stanton would do back when feminism was in its early stages. And I'm like, I think I know what they're talking about here. Holy cow.
And for any doubters, I would say to you, who in the real world does all of the infrastructure jobs? Who in the real world builds the roads, builds our buildings, builds our houses, does the plumbing, does the electrical? It's all men. It's like 98% men. And all of these, people say all over the internet that, if all the men disappeared, all of a sudden it'd be chaos.
Yep.
And if all of the women disappeared, other than reproduction, obviously, we'd do just fine because we run the world. Barbie Land is run by women. They have all the important jobs. They do everything. Who in the real world do Barbies really represent? They don't represent women in the real world.
Yeah. I think it's important to bring this up too, because I've noticed kind of a trend where you have like these Will Ferrell's in the movie, and I'm a big Will Ferrell fan. I do think he's funny. I know he's vulgar. I know he's probably degenerate. And I think he's a leftist too. But he is really a funny dude.
He is funny.
He's a very funny dude. And you know what? He made that. Remember when he made the Lego movie? That was his creation. He made the Lego movie, and it was an entire satire of the civilization we live in. Where was the song where everything is awesome, where we're all pretending like things aren't terrible.
Everything is awesome.
And that was back in, I think 2015, 2016, whenever the movie came out. It was sometime around then. And then this movie, it really has kind of a similar aura to that. I'm starting to wonder. I was like, is this a Will Ferrell thing where this is all going on, where there's this interesting social commentary underlying the story that's just a surface level thing for kids?
We'll have to look up and see if he's more involved in the movie than just the acting.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious on that because he played the CEO of Mattel in the movie, because they went to the real world. They had to go talk to Mattel. And another thing I liked about it was that at the beginning of the movie, they denigrated motherhood. They literally had, women smashing up their baby dolls and stuff. And Barbie was the thing that was going to make women stop wanting to be mothers and just be whatever they want to be. And, all that nonsense. But at the end, they actually changed. And the other thing, they made fun of the discontinued pregnant Barbie as well, because they're like, that's just weird that a woman's pregnant and stuff like that. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was kind of upset about that throughout the movie. But then at the end, they say, no, it's okay to be a mother. It's okay to do all those things.
Yeah.
But they obviously added this like libertarian garbage nonsense. But it's also okay to do this. But it's also okay to do that.
Yeah.
And like I said, the movie is not perfect. There is like actual points of, yes, we are pushing a feminism, but it's more of a libertarian feminism, I would say, than it is the woke Marxist garbage where like you're a woman, you have to work, and being a mother's evil and you're a traitor to the female species or whatever for doing so.
I do have one more conspiracy theory about the movie. It's very simple. You
said it earlier, but I want to add this before you go into this. I am also literally Ken.
I'm just Ken.
Oh yeah, no, I'm literally Ken, and the conspiracy theory is actually about Ken. I believe that Ken is likely, probably, definitely the main protagonist of the movie.
Yeah,
he probably definitely has a little more character development than Barbie has. And, maybe I need to see the movie again to be sure about that. Like,
I am going to see it again.
Obviously, Barbie has quite a bit of character development. They wrote that into the script, but Ken, I think, changes the most. I think he's the main character, sorta. At least you can make a case for it, and so I really like that. I really kind of enjoyed that aspect because the movie. Because even if my first theory is true, the movie's still about women. It's not
Of course
about
it is.
it's not about men in charge.
Yeah.
If you take my first conspiracy theory at heart, it's still about the women who are represented by Ken.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the other thing that's interesting about Ken, and the reason they tried to shy away from Ken being the main character in the movie, and you can see that,
Sure.
because they changed the ending where they have like the actual creator of Barbie, who's this sweet old lady who Barbie actually met in the kitchen, making tea and stuff like that, and being very feminine, which women are obviously attracted to. Which, once again, good writing. They have her come in and tell her all about, the real purpose of Barbie and all that to try and make this story about the Barbie. But I feel like they just added that in there. It wasn't necessary. The movie could have ended with Ken standing there with his tank top that read, "I am Kenuff."
Yeah.
Which I loved, by the way. I am Kenuff. Like, I am enough.
Yeah.
And this is when he realized, and remember, Ken represents women in this. I am Kenuff. So where I was before, now that I recognize who I truly am and who my true self is, I'm enough. And that's a good message for young girls, actually.
Yeah.
I am enough. I'm not what society's telling me to be. I'm not what feminism is telling me to be. Now, granted, they're also saying that's not what patriarchy tells me to be, which is the wrong aspect of the movie. But like I said, from it's a libertarian perspective on it. That said, the movie was very funny.
It was hilarious.
I was laughing the entire time, guys.
I haven't laughed at a movie so hard in a very long time.
Yeah.
And I lied. I do have one more conspiracy theory before we get into Oppenheimer. Margot Robbie is not mid.
Okay. Yeah, this has been a huge discussion on there. I'm getting married, so I'm going to bow out of that discussion entirely just because, I'm going to be a good husband and all that. But, okay. So we'll leave it at that. Now we're at it's Barbenheimer, guys. It's Barbenheimer. So now we're going to talk about Oppenheimer. The biopic of the man who invented the nuclear bomb. They call him the father of the atom bomb. He was a theoretical scientist, is what it seems.
Theoretical physicist.
I'm sorry, theoretical physicist. Thank you. I'm not a science guy, if you haven't noticed. So
I'm a little bit.
Are you?
A little bit.
Charlie, the science guy. Okay, cool. So we saw the movie, and I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on it, and you can disagree with me on this. And I think I don't think we're entirely on the same page. We're partially.
We're on the same page somewhat, and there's some nuanced disagreements. So go ahead.
So my initial concerns with this movie is I actually didn't like it. I didn't like it that much at all. But that said, this goes into probably a bigger problem. The movie's directed by Christopher Nolan. This is a Christopher Nolan film. I felt like this was like The Dark Knight, Batman-esque type style, except it's applied to a actionless drama. And it just didn't fit. The production style did not fit the story that he was trying to tell. It was dry, I thought. It was boring. And there was I'm not saying there wasn't great parts to the movie. There was great parts to the movie, especially the nuclear test scene. I thought that was terrific. The suspense was real. I was at the edge of my seat during that movie.
Definitely agree there.
But the other thing, his style, whenever he was doing foreshadowing, in the movie, or whenever he was showing a future event, and he was always jumping back and forth from different times to different times. But when he would jump to the future, it would go to black and white.
Yeah.
That is the most non-intuitive cut I can even think of, because whenever you think of black and white, you always think of the past, because that is the older form of filmmaking.
Exactly.
That's all just very intuitive. He would jump to the future. The past was in color. There was another part that was in like a Technicolor, and then there was, which is a different time period. And then there was the future that was in black and white. I had at the beginning of the movie, for about a third of that entire movie, which is an hour, by the way, because it's a 3-hour movie, I had no idea what time, when everything was happening. I was lost in that movie.
Yeah. I agree with most of that. I think that the whole black and white thing, I think it's allowed in storytelling. Other shows, Breaking Bad, I believe also Memoir, not Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul has done that, where the future is in black and white. But you know what? That's besides the point. It was confusing. I was confused too at the beginning of the film. I think that has a lot to do with the pacing and the way that the story is being told.
It's jumping all over the place.
Yeah,
so
my
quick.
biggest complaint is the pacing. It's just boom, 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 scene after scene after scene, dialogue after bits of dialogue, more dialogue. They cut to another scene and they're immediately talking and everything's fast. It's like you said with The Dark Knight, it was edited like an action flick, but it's all dialogue, it's all drama. And so you have these really intense conversations where they talk kind of like this, almost a little bit like Batman does. And meanwhile, there's a violin going in the background, but they're just talking about science.
Yeah. Now, but that said, the parts with science where they had the visuals of like the atoms hitting each other and the sounds, the sound effects, like I mean, think about it this way: everything that Christopher Nolan does a great job of in his action movies, it was good in Oppenheimer. Yeah. It was really good in Oppenheimer. But you know what? It didn't fit what the story was about.
And the some of the things that I think were okay and kind of good, like. It's interesting to me that it's edited like an action, sounds like an action, but actually a drama.
But be honest,
that's interesting to me.
Work.
But it doesn't work because the film was 3 hours and it was jam packed. I bet anything, if they do some kind of extended director's cut, it's going to be longer than the longest Lord of the Rings director's cut, which I think was 4.5 hours. It's
going to be like the Snyder cut of the Justice League, where it was like 4.5 hours.
Yeah, and there have to be an intermission in the middle. Yeah. Because that movie was so jam-packed, yet it was still 3 hours long. I was like tired out at the end trying to like put all the pieces together and follow the story.
You got it by the end, but it was just like, okay, I got it, but did I and this is the point of a movie, it's supposed to be entertaining. Did I enjoy getting there, or was it a labor to get there?
It was a labor.
It was a labor to get there. Here's the thing, and this is what bugs me the most. It didn't need to be 3 hours.
No,
and there's two major problems that I have with this movie. The first problem that I have with the first major problem that I have with this movie is they didn't even show what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which was a heinous crime. And if you're a Catholic, yes, you're not supposed to support the bomb. That was a utilitarian decision. Catholics oppose entirely utilitarianism. We don't believe in that. So my problem is they don't show what could have happened. They could have made a deep and emotional scene watching family after family after family being vaporized by the tens of thousands in one singular blast of a bomb, and I don't even see it in the movie. But what I do get to see instead is a bunch of degenerate nudity and sex scenes in it. Yeah. Like, you needed the sex scenes, but you're not going to put in the bombing?
Yeah.
It's a joke. Yeah. It's a joke. And then the second thing. The second major problem that I have with this, one of his Oppenheimer's most iconic lines in the movie is simply glazed over. That should have been the end of the movie, where he says, "I am become death."
They could have
the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah, they could have ended the movie with soon after the testing of the bomb, and they could have incorporated the speech and did his like time jumping skippy thing, and they could have really had an impactful ending.
Put up that speech. It is one of the most dramatic things ever said in American history. Perfect thing to put into a movie, and they just didn't put it in at all.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
And you know what? You know why? And I can tell you why. Because this was a woke movie. This was a movie that was about exonerating him of all the accusations that were made against him for working with communists.
Because that was the point of the last act of the film.
Exactly.
They have the test, and then they hear about the bombs in Japan, and then the last part of the movie is his exoneration and why he's not guilty.
It's ridiculous. It's like was there anybody out? Was there this campaign out here that everybody really needed to know that Oppenheimer was not a real communist, despite the fact that his wife was a card-carrying communist when she was younger?
In a really strange, odd twist of fate, Barbie, which is literally about feminism being great, is possibly under the surface more based
than Oppenheimer was,
which is than Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer is a film that, if you are going to go and see it, you need to be aware there's the nude sex scenes that are pretty graphic. Look away, cover your eyes, if you need to.
Yeah, and you know what? If you are somebody that is at risk of being scandalized by that sort of thing, just don't go see it.
Just don't go see it.
Just don't go see it. Seriously, guys. Catholics, this is a matter. It's a matter of prudence, and the Catholic Church has taught this. you shouldn't be viewing graphic sexual acts at all. You shouldn't be doing that at all. That's a mortal sin. Do not do it. There's been several people on Twitter that have been debating about whether you can see Oppenheimer or not. I think that if you cover your eyes, you should be okay, personally. But if you're not, definitely don't. Seriously, follow your conscience on this. If you think that you're going to be tempted to sin, do not go see this movie. The only reason me and Charlie went is because we were okay. I didn't have any issues, and I don't think you did either. So, but
I looked away.
I looked away and covered my eyes as well. I want to talk about this a little bit more because, this was a movie that seemed like it was going in the right direction at the point of the nuclear bomb test, but it left out all the dramatic aspects from the real American history of it. But there was one good scene, and it was a great scene where he went into the president's office and met with Harry Truman. My only complaint about that is I think whoever was playing Harry Truman looked nothing like him.
Yeah, I didn't even know which president it was until they said his name.
I knew it was Truman because he was the one that dropped the bombs.
I'm not a history guy. I'm a science guy.
I knew it was Truman. I looked at it. I was like, is that supposed to be Truman? It's like, it doesn't even look like him. I was like, what the heck? But he had him come into the office, and they were arguing about it, they were arguing about the dropping of the bomb and stuff. And Truman made just a brilliant point. He's like, do you think the people in Nagasaki or Hiroshima care about you, the person that made the bomb? The only person they care about is who dropped it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's saying, you're sitting in here in my office acting like a crybaby that you just killed a bunch of people when that's on my conscience. I did that. I'm the one that did that's responsible, who's going to be hated by people for decades and decades and decades for what I did.
And that's accurate.
That's accurate. That's real.
That's real.
That's very real. And then when he left, and then when he left, this is a real quote from Truman, guys, by the way. He says, never let that crybaby come into my office again when Oppenheimer left.
Yeah.
What a great display of old time America's masculinity. And that seemed to me like them trying to exonerate Truman a little bit. I don't agree with that. Truman was a Freemason. He was an evil dude, but it showed that he had a moment where he's like, I don't think what I did was right. There's kind of a hint that maybe he was wrestling with that in his head.
Yeah. He certainly was. I mean, I think that's pretty evident by his speech and the various things we know about him.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, is there anything else you want to add about this?
Just that, Christopher Nolan needs to, stop making Christopher Nolan films. I mean, I knew it was a Christopher Nolan film in the first 5 seconds because of the sound and the visuals. It was like, this was truly one of the most Christopher Nolan films he's ever done. And
it was missing one aspect, though. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He should stick to action. He should stick to moving things that are driving. And this wasn't a driving story. This was a very historical thing. And I think he was just trying something new and, trying to make like a drama action movie type thing. It just didn't work.
The characters in this film were not, I didn't feel any kind of emotional attachment to them.
Because the acting was great.
The acting was great, but I didn't feel for the protagonist when he's when something bad happens or when he's thinking one thing, I'm not on that same page. And the most intense scene was a sequence of the bomb testing. That was when I was at the edge of my seat.
It was so and you know what? You think about it, it's like Christopher Nolan does that. It's an awesome scene. It's going to be a memorable scene.
That's the closest thing to an action scene in that film. And it was brilliantly done. That was the best thing. I would actually say that was probably the best thing about the whole night, aside from any time Ken was on screen.
Oh, Ken's the biggest winner of this. And on that note, guys, I will say that I am Kenough and all of you can also be Kenough. But the first thing you got to do is you got to follow us on Instagram. You got to follow us on X instead of Twitter because Twitter doesn't exist anymore. Thanks, Elon Musk. We got X now. You can also follow us on Threads, that thing that Mark Zuckerberg created and is totally dying right now because no one cares about it. You can also subscribe, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notifications bell so you always know when we're dropping new content. And guys, much like we gave to the Barbie movie creators, you also need to give us your money. And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. That is buymeacoffee.com. You can do a single donation or you can do a monthly Joe for Joe donation for only $5 a month. And with that said, guys, that's all we got for this review. We'll be seeing Charlie on here again, and obviously we'll be seeing Ronan again. Maybe he'll have a chair next time. Doubt it. God bless.